Oh my, what is happening right now? It's so sudden, without any warning. Frantic screams are echoing, creating chaos in the entire area. March 11, 2011, a day that made the entire world tremble. Japan, one of the most developed nations in the world, suddenly became the epicenter of one of the most devastating natural disasters in human history. An earthquake of unimaginable power shook not only the ground, but the very hearts of people. And immediately after, a colossal tsunami swept in, washing away the dreams and hopes of thousands. Similar threats in the future. In a fleeting moment, a tsunami as tall as a building surged onto the shore, sweeping everything in its path. Homes, cars, and even innocent lives, all were engulfed by the raging waters. No one could have imagined that in the blink of an eye, an entire town could vanish from the map, with its memory only remaining in haunting videos and stories. The wrath of Mother Nature struck Japan with an unstoppable force. But what truly happened during those terrifying moments? Can we comprehend the harshness of nature enough to be ready for the challenges that lie ahead? Join us as we explore the mysteries and lessons from this disaster, seeking the answers.
March 11th, 2011. A day like any other in the port town of Chike, Iwate Prefecture. The sea was calm, and the gentle whirlpools within the breakwaters seemed to play, evoking a strangely peaceful feeling. People stood along the shore, watching the familiar scene, believing that everything was safe. But they had no idea that they were just minutes away from everything changing forever. At 2:45 p.m., the sunlight glistened on the sea like golden rays, and everything seemed still in a serene picture. But don't let that calm deceive you. In the depths of the ocean, 80 miles away, a giant monster was awakening, powerful and merciless, ready to unleash a force that no picture could ever capture. Imagine standing on a fragile sheet of ice in the middle of the ocean, with a deep abyss beneath your feet. You look around, and everything seems fine, but you don't realize that the ice is slowly cracking. The people of Chike were just like that. They had no idea that the terrifying force of Mother Nature was gathering right beneath them, waiting for the moment to shatter that fragile piece. 2:47 p.m. Everything remained quiet. People continued to believe that if a tsunami were coming, they would see it from afar, from the horizon. But they didn't realize that the massive tsunami was approaching from an unexpected direction, in the very depths of the sea where they had been watching so indifferently. Like a fierce beast, the tsunami struck without warning, crashing onto the shore with destructive power, turning everything peaceful into rubble in the blink of an eye. Peace had been an illusion, and Mother Nature decided to teach us a lesson about the smallness and helplessness of humans in the face of the universe's wrath. Join us at Best Notes as we explore this harrowing story to understand how a tsunami can turn a coastal paradise into hell in just a few short minutes. 14:46 p.m., March 11th, 2011. Japan was experiencing a day like any other, but in a split second, everything changed. Deep beneath the ocean, 130 kilometers off the eastern coast of the Oshika Peninsula, an immense, invisible force began to stir. The ground started to tremble, gently at first, as if a giant was waking from a long slumber. The first small tremors spread from the epicenter, like the rumbling of a giant beast slowly awakening. But then, within seconds, these tremors became fierce and powerful. The ground seemed to crack open, shaking relentlessly, causing everything on it to sway violently. Even the skyscrapers in Tokyo, hundreds of miles away, couldn't escape this chaotic force. The earth beneath people's feet suddenly felt like water, with no solid ground to stand on. 4:48 p.m. Just 2 minutes after the first shock, the entire Tohoku region was thrown into chaos. The earthquake reached a magnitude of 7 in Miyagi Prefecture, the maximum level on Japan's seismic intensity scale. Tsunami warnings began to echo everywhere, from the coastlines to the inland cities. But the big question remained: what would happen next? Had Mother Nature's wrath ended, or was this just the beginning? 4:50 p.m. As the earthquake seemed to subside, massive tsunamis began to form beneath the sea. These were no ordinary waves. They were colossal walls of water, carrying the power to level an entire city. From the ocean's depths, the tsunami began to surge, harnessing the ocean's strength, heading straight for Japan's densely populated coastline. 14:52 p.m. All eyes were on the sea, but no one could see the looming threat rising from beneath the ocean's surface. The tsunami didn't come from the horizon as people might have expected, but from right beneath them, where the ordinary waves usually lapped at the shore. And then, the biggest question loomed. Would the innocent residents have time to escape before this monstrous fury struck? Don't leave your screen. Remember to follow best notes to not miss these breathtaking moments. Join us as we uncover what happened when the colossal tsunami hit the shore, bringing unstoppable destruction in its wake. 2:55 p.m., March 11, 2011. On the Pacific coast of Japan, alarms blared everywhere, signaling the imminent arrival of a catastrophe. The massive tsunamis, born from the colossal 9.1 magnitude earthquake, were beginning to form. Yet, no one could have imagined the terrifying force these waves would carry. Oh, look at that. Just look at it. From afar, on the ocean's surface, the first tsunamis appeared like ordinary waves, but lurking behind them was an unstoppable force. These waves, towering over 10 meters high, equivalent to a 3-story building, rushed forward with terrifying speed, like an invisible wall of water, sweeping away everything in their path. Not a single wave, but a series of relentless, powerful, and unstoppable waves surged forward. 2:58 p.m. The first wave crashed onto the Japanese coast, and in an instant, it began to sweep away everything in its path. Cars, houses, trees, everything was swallowed by the murky black water. Roads that were once bustling with life were now rivers of debris, carrying away the remnants of lives that had just been obliterated. The colossal wave didn't stop at the shoreline. It surged more than 10 kilometers inland, bringing with it an unstoppable wave of destruction. This is horrifying. This is truly the greatest disaster I have ever witnessed. In just a few short minutes, the tsunami had transformed once thriving coastal towns into desolate wastelands. Where roads once ran, there was now only a muddy expanse. What had once been the pride of Japan, modern bridges, advanced railways, were now reduced to fragments, swept away by the torrent. But the question remains, has this fury ended, or is it just beginning? What is happening? This is beyond imagination. 3:02 p.m. The tsunami continued to advance inland, carrying with it homes, cars, and innocent lives. In the distance, fires erupted from the devastated areas, adding to the chaos and terror. Along the entire Pacific coast, from North America to South America, millions were bracing for this nightmare. Thousands of lives had already been taken in mere minutes, and thousands more were still missing, leaving behind an unhellable wound. Like a giant sea monster, the tsunami struck, sweeping everything away. Tour boats, once symbols of peace and exploration, were now engulfed in the dark water, helplessly pushed back towards the shore. The larger ships, too, were flipped over like toys in the hands of an angry child with their bottoms exposed, a horrifying sight. 30 minutes later, the tsunami had breached the high seawalls, with nothing able to stand in its way. Vehicles, including cars parked behind the seawalls, were swept away like leaves in a flood. Ships, designed to withstand the ocean's harshness, were now submerged, overwhelmed by the sheer force of the tsunami. The devastation was total, the destruction complete, and the terror unforgettable. What had begun as a normal day had turned into a nightmare beyond anyone's worst fears. Even as the water began to trickle over the low concrete wall, the men stood there, unfazed, as if watching a child's game rather than facing an impending natural disaster. They joked and laughed, teasing each other that these waves were nothing to worry about, nothing special at all. But if they had known they were about to witness the most brutal wrath of Mother Nature, would they still be laughing? Oh no, you might have been mistaken. This was no ordinary wave. It was as if the tsunami was preparing for the most spectacular show ever. The water started rising at an alarming rate, spilling over the concrete barrier and crashing into the harbor. In the blink of an eye, the gentle streams turned into ferocious waves, powerful like predators charging at their prey. At first, the men just stood and watched, but then they began to realize that this was no longer a game. The water surged everywhere, engulfing everything in sight. "We're in trouble," one man murmured as a chill ran down his spine. And as the second wave, even more powerful, came crashing in, alarms blared incessantly. The water rose to the first floor, then the second, sweeping away everything in its path. "Oh my God, look at that!" Meanwhile, a second camera captured the unbelievable sight. A massive wall of water, 11 feet high, was rushing toward them, unstoppable and relentless. Like a giant serpent, the tsunami snaked through buildings, knocking them down like toy blocks. And as if that wasn't terrifying enough, crest of the wave towered another 20 feet higher, ready to crush whatever remained. The final blow of the tsunami felt like a mighty punch from Mother Nature herself, slamming into the coastline and creating a massive explosion of water. Towering columns of frothy, white water shot up like a geyser, smashing into the concrete and rocks, sending sprays as high as 30 meters into the air. The towering pine trees, which had withstood countless storms over the years, suddenly seemed insignificant in the face of the overwhelming power of the tsunami. In just a few short seconds, the pine trees on the northern tip of the peninsula were uprooted, swept away like matchsticks tossed into a raging river. It was an unbelievable sight, how the grandeur of nature could become so small and fragile under the wrath of the ocean. Oh no, the second camera captured an unimaginable scene, as the main wave, the largest and most ferocious of them all, crashed onto the shore. It didn't just carry debris, it swallowed an entire fishing boat, turning it into a mere toy in the hands of a giant. The boat vanished into the fury of the waves, as if it had never existed. Witnesses in nearby buildings scrambled for shelter as they saw this colossal wave approach. In that moment, many believed that no one could survive such devastation. Yet, sometimes reality can be more miraculous than we expect, as a few lucky individuals found safe havens, narrowly escaping the wave's destructive path. Look at those cars and buildings. As the main wave continued its relentless march inland, it completed its mission of destruction. Massive oil tankers, enormous steel structures, were ripped away from the harbor cranes, carried off without a moment's hesitation. This scene starkly illustrated the unimaginable power of the tsunami, turning even the largest and heaviest objects into mere flotsam drifting in the water. According to official reports, 15,894 people lost their lives, and over 20,500 are still missing. Cold, haunting numbers, but the disaster didn't stop there. Over 4.4 million people in northeastern Japan were left without electricity, and 1.4 million had no access to water. Think about that. How do you face the forces of nature when even light and water, the most basic elements for survival, are wiped out in just a few short minutes? Not stopping there, this terrifying earthquake triggered an event that seemed straight out of a science fiction movie. 2 nuclear reactors at the Fukushima 1 power plant, massive machines designed to withstand anything, were severely damaged. And then, like the climax of an action film, just 24 hours later, a massive explosion shook the entire area. Imagine it's like when you're playing with a water balloon, but suddenly that balloon bursts, spraying water everywhere. Only this time, it's 1,000 times more terrifying. The explosion shattered the protective concrete shell of the building, leaving behind debris and thick clouds of smoke. Thankfully, the inner core, where the nuclear fuel rods are housed, remained intact, standing like a resilient warrior against destruction. But don't celebrate too soon, because no one knew what might happen next. What we were witnessing wasn't just a technical failure, but a race against time to prevent a nuclear disaster that could unfold at any moment. The entire surrounding area was evacuated immediately, and a state of emergency was declared nationwide. A scenario no one ever wanted, but it had become a stark reality. At 3:57 p.m. on March 11, 2011, the tsunami was no longer a vague threat out at sea. It had made landfall, swallowing everything in its path. Sendai Airport, just a mile from the coast, seawater surged in like a giant. Millions were erased as well. The tsunami didn't stop until it had penetrated 6 miles inland, leaving behind a scene of destruction that looked more like a war zone. Japan had been dealt 2 crushing blows. First, the strongest earthquake in its history, and then the tsunami. Perfect combination of the worst nightmares imaginable. But as they say, disasters never come alone. And indeed, the third catastrophe quickly followed, a nuclear nightmare. At 3:42 p.m., just 56 minutes after the earthquake struck, the tsunami reached the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. Inside, 3 nuclear reactors were operating, relying on diesel generators for cooling. But when these machines were submerged, Japan faced a threat that no nation ever wants to encounter: the risk of a nuclear meltdown. Look at this. The 5.7-meter-high seawalls, believed to be sturdy and impenetrable, were overwhelmed by a wave towering 14 meters. Footage captured after the wave hit reveals a terrifying scene, as if someone had poured an entire ocean onto the plant. The diesel generators were destroyed, the cooling system crippled. And now, we are witnessing the clock ticking down to a potential nuclear disaster. While the entire eastern coast of Japan struggles to survive, inside the Fukushima plant, engineers are racing against time. They have 8 hours, yes, just 8 hours, before the backup cooling system's batteries run out. But the greatest danger, still looming. 3:55 p.m., the tsunami surged to its peak, reaching a height of 38 meters above sea level. The scene is straight out of an apocalyptic film, but this is the harsh reality Japan must confront. The cooling system at Fukushima is like the heart of the reactor, but now it lies paralyzed, with trigger an explosion. At this moment, the battery-powered backup cooling system is their last hope. But it only has enough power to run for 8 hours. 8 short hours, and the clock is ticking down every second. That night, at the Fukushima plant, firefighters and engineers faced a life-or-death decision. Either they regain control of the reactor, or the entire region becomes a dead zone. With the automated systems destroyed, authorities had to send people into the radioactive zone to manually cool the reactor. Facing the greatest nuclear disaster since Chernobyl, these brave souls stood on the front lines, risking their lives to prevent an even greater catastrophe. And as everything hangs in the balance, all we can do is hope they succeed. Everything is unfolding with bated breath, and we can only wait, hoping they will succeed in this life and death battle. Will they have enough time? Or will nature once again prove just how small and fragile humanity truly is? March 11th, 2011, 5:57 p.m. As Japan was still reeling from the shock of the historic earthquake, a massive tsunami crashed into Sendai Airport, just a mile from the coastline. Air traffic controller Yoshi Kabuni, still desperately trying to guide the planes hovering above, had to abandon his post and rush to higher ground, leaving his car behind as the waves surged in. The scene now is truly heartbreaking. Just hours ago, this was a bustling area, but now everything is submerged in darkness and an eerie silence. The roads that people once traveled daily are now buried under a thick layer of black mud and debris. Homes, vehicles, everything has been swept away by the tsunami, leaving behind a landscape of ruins. The only sounds left are the whispers of the wind and the occasional crackle from damaged electrical equipment. The residents here, who were living their ordinary lives just hours before, are now trapped in an unbroken tsunami, forever altered the landscape of Japan, stripping millions of their most precious possessions and leaving a deep scar in the annals of human history. Yet from the ashes of devastation, people of Japan rose, rebuilding their future with resilience and determination, standing as a steadfast symbol of unyielding spirit in the face of adversity. we must never forget the painful lessons from this disaster. And more importantly, we cannot afford to be complacent about the dangers that loom in any corner of the world. Join us as we continue to observe, learn, and reflect on historical events like these. Don't forget to hit follow on our Best Notes channel to stay informed about important stories and in-depth analyses of significant global events and natural disasters. Because only by understanding the past, we better prepare for the future. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.